Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant and I'm back with some more vibes for all you. Yes, I. And it's the age old question, and I didn't know that there was a debate on this. This one is called The History of Coffee, Brewing Controversy. And again, extra history. So I did some videos really early on when I started doing these history videos. And I believe it says coffee came from Somalia, and then the Ethiopians say no, it came from Ethiopia. You know what I mean? So I guess this year will explore that whole thing. Uh, Everybody enjoys coffee. I don't drink coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. I like tea myself. But here we go. See what the history of coffee is. This is going to be interesting. And it seems like it's a series too, because this one says number one. So I'll have to find the others to see where the argument goes. So, comment down below. Tell me stuff that you want me to watch, and I'll watch it. But comment down below about the controversy about coffee. This was going to be interesting. This was kind of light-hearted, apart from all the serious historical stuff I do. But bam, I wanted to do this. So let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer and see where I go on with this.
According to legend, it started over 1,000 years ago with some goats. An Ethiopian goat herder burst into a monastery. He tells the monks that his name is Kali and that he's discovered something incredible. Magic berries! See, he'd gone and looked for his goats, right? But found them munching on red berries from an unfamiliar bush. And then, get this, the goats were dancing. Just leaping around, full of energy. And then, curious, he tried the berries himself, of course. And just like the goats, he'd been unable to sleep that night. And he wanted to share this discovery with everyone as soon as he possibly could. Frightened by his story, and probably his shaky, over-caffeinated manner, the monks declared these magic berries the work of Satan and cast them into the fire. But as the berries burn away, roasting the beans inside, their aroma is so delicious, the abbot yells that nothing made by the devil could possibly smell so sweet. They rake the beans out of the fire and cover them in hot water to preserve them. But then the liquid is so alluring, they can't help but take the tiniest taste. And lo, a worldwide addiction is born.
Oh yeah. So that's the vibe. Okay.
Thanks so much to humankind for helping us keep this history brewing. Mocha, Java, Joe, Brew, Cuppa, Tar, Jitter Juice, Rocket Fuel, or maybe most aptly, my blood type. Call it what you want. We love coffee. Love it so much, in fact, that not only is it one of the world's most traded commodities, but literally, and I'm not kidding here, right as I sat down to read this script, my body instantly told me that I should get up and walk to my local coffee shop before I started, thus completing the circle of addiction before we even began. This latte's good. From its obscure origin in Ethiopia, coffee's conquered the planet.
Ethiopia.
In the next 2 episodes, we're going to take you on a whirlwind tour of its rise and triumph. So grab your own double espresso and get ready for a highly caffeinated retelling of how the world's favorite psychoactive drug conquered the globe. Because while some might say that Kaldi's dancing goat story belongs in our other show, Hi Other Me, there actually might be some truth to this legend. Coffee is native to Ethiopia, and in an area where goat herding was a major part of agriculture, it wasn't unusual to let the animals, who basically would eat anything, try out unfamiliar plants to see if they were edible. Though that's where the truth probably ends. Because while in the legend, monks go straight to roasting and drinking coffee, in reality, people spent a while eating it. First the berries surrounding the bean, then blocks of roasted and ground beans held together with binding agents as sort of an energy bar. Other legends tell of Muslim holy men bringing coffee from Ethiopia to Mecca, including one that was supposedly made a saint in thanks. But historically speaking, all we know is that by the end of the 16th century, the drink had spread all across the
I wonder if they had made it illegal in certain places because it's a drug. You know what I mean? Because it makes you so hyperactive and stuff like that. But I'll be honest though, coffee doesn't do that to me. I fall asleep right after drinking coffee and stuff like that. Doesn't make me jittery or nervous or anything like that. You know what I mean? I would like to drink some coffee that's going to do that to me just to see, you know what I mean? But it doesn't do anything for me. If I'm tired and I drink coffee, I'm still tired.
All we know is that by the end of the 16th century, the drink had spread all across the Middle East, North Africa, and the Ottoman Empire. Of course, every new craze needs early adopters, and in coffee's case, it was the Sufi mystics, many of whom were merchants with trade links to Ethiopia. Famous for their late-night rituals, spent praying, whirling, and reciting the name of God, the Sufis quickly discovered that the bitter drink helped keep them energized during their devotions, and probably helped them get over their sluggishness before work the next morning. But coffee quickly moved out of being a niche drink favored by one religious sect, because it was ideally suited to become a staple of the Islamic world. In a region where alcohol was illegal, coffee served as an alternative drink for socializing and enjoyment. Plus, in a culture that prized academic learning, coffee became a favorite fuel of late-night study sessions. But it was also the method of coffee drinking that made it popular, because coffee was not, in general, a drink made in the home, but rather brewed and consumed at coffee houses, due to the time needed in the preparation of the coffee, and the fact that the bitter liquid was served piping hot and could not be drunk quickly. Coffee houses became a rare secular public space for conversations, business, and social life. Because at the coffee house, there was no rank or distinction.
People were getting
of all
high,
classes,
boy.
trades, and ethnic groups talked freely about the issues of the day. And amazingly, that neutral space of the coffee house is still what you'll find going into a cafe nearly anywhere in the world today. And also like today, many coffee houses of the time tended to grow up around universities. Yet, as you'd expect, not every ruler was crazy about how this new stimulant was sweeping their previously caffeine-free cities. Some rejected it on religious grounds, get it? Claiming that it was a way of consuming charcoal, which was forbidden in the Quran, while other religious leaders preached against it, saying it clearly had intoxicating physical effects, and therefore should be
that
banned.
answers my question.
Back in 1511, Khair Beg, the governor of Mecca, put coffee on trial. Oh, and I mean that literally. He propped a jar of coffee up in a chair and had his council of religious leaders lay out the evidence that it was an intoxicant, encouraged idleness, and caused people to spend time in gossipy coffee houses filled with loose talk and scandalous pursuits. Like
Oh, man.
they banned the
I
drink.
tell you.
But Islamic laws governing intoxicants had all been written about alcohol. And those arguments kind of fell apart when pro-coffee religious figures pointed out that coffee heightened the senses rather than dulled them, and kept the drinker in control of their moral faculties. After all, if
That's kind of that's kind of like the Rasta with the weed. You know, you smoke the weed and you praise Jah and thing like that, and it helps you in a meditative way get oneness with Jah. You know what I mean? They using coffee back then to do that stuff. That's crazy. That is crazy.
in control of their moral faculties. After all, if everything that had a physical effect was banned, that would include spicy food as well. So, yeah. Within months, a higher court in Cairo overturned the ruling. Truthfully, objections to coffee were often less about the drink itself and more about the coffeehouse culture that fostered political discussion, the spread of non-orthodox ideas, and the occasional political coup. In fact, Ottoman Sultan Murad IV, who himself had come to the throne as a result of a coffeehouse plot, was reported to personally wander the streets of Istanbul in disguise with a massive sword, decapitating anyone he found sipping the brew. Of course, his successor was more
Wow.
For a first offense, you got a little cudgeling, and then repeat offenders, of course, were sewn into a sack and thrown into the Bosphorus. You know, logical punishments. This debate about coffee would continue for decades, with cycles of anti-coffee rulers banning it throughout the 16th and early 17th centuries, but the popularity of the beverage always outliving the sultans who repressed it. But you know, there were also commercial reasons for allowing the drink, because the Muslim world had found a new use for coffee. Selling it to Europe. Now exactly when and how coffee first came to Europe is too obscure to determine. Turkish slaves and prisoners of war were observed brewing it in the Christian camp during the siege of Malta in 1565. And by the next decade, Venetian merchants were buying it in the port of Mocha, which is where that name comes from, and then bringing it into Italy as a drink for the wealthy. But as ever, the dark concoction brought controversy with it. Legends claim that several bishops requested that Pope Clement VIII ban the drink as satanic and non-Christian. But when Clement tried it himself, he declared, "Why, this Satan's drink is so delicious. It would be a pity to let the infidels have exclusive use of it." Now, did that happen? Probably not. But it does show how divisive coffee continued to be, and not only because of its association with the Islamic world. Doctors, probably spurred on or hired by tavern owners who didn't want the competition of coffee houses, wrote about coffee's supposedly dire health effects. One especially notable attack was the Women's Petition Against Coffee. Published in England in 1674, it offered a full 6 pages of body innuendo about coffee's supposed effects on men's performance.
What?
Excessive use of that newfangled, abominable heathen liquor called coffee, it said, has so eunuched our husbands that they are become as unfruitful as those deserts whence the unhappy berry is said to be brought. Harf! But the backlash was only a symptom of coffee's success, because not only did the drink come from the Muslim world, the culture of the coffee house did as well. Coffee houses swept Europe, but became particularly ubiquitous in London, where by the 1680s, they served as a mixture of public meeting place, business office, and news outlet for the rising intelligentsia. If you wanted to find someone, you didn't ask where they lived, but which coffee house they frequented. You could even drop them a letter there as if it was a post office. And they were always the best places to hear news and rumors, whether they be economic, literary, or political. And that was because coffee houses had specialty clientele. For instance, the Grecian Coffee House was the headquarters of the Royal Society, London's foremost scientific organization. And after stockbrokers were banned from the Royal Exchange, they coalesced around Jonathan's Coffee House, unofficially making it the first London Stock Exchange. Then there was Lloyd's Coffee House, which was popular with maritime traders and those who sold insurance to them, a clientele who eventually formed a society that would become Lloyd's of London, the most famous insurance market in the world. So yeah, coffee, or rather coffee culture, was helping to revolutionize international trade and commerce. A network that, ironically, would then help coffee spread around the world and revolutionize so much more than trade. So grab a cup with us next time, as coffee sobers up a perpetually drunken Europe, fuels the American Civil War, conquers the globe, and meets its best friends, milk and sugar. But of course, coffee's not the only thing that shaped our past. All of history is a web of cultures influencing each other in countless different ways, which is precisely the type of microcosm that Humankind, a new Forex strategy game, is excited to explore.
Wow. You see, I'm glad I watched this, man, I hope I could find more like this, foods and drinks and how it, I'm going to do, I want to find one on alcohol and see how that is because, these days, you go have a drink and do a business meeting, James Bond, stirred is not shaken, all that stuff, We romanticize a lot of stuff, but behind the scenes, there's more stuff to it than we tend to acknowledge. Anyway, man, the link in the description, go check it out there and thing, and as usual, go out there and meet a stranger, understand the stranger, take care of each other. Cool runnings.